Hey guys, Zane here with another one take review, and today I wanted to talk about the new Chainsmokers album, So Far So Good. So Far So Good is the latest album from electro-pop duo The Chainsmokers, or as they're better known within my own personal realm of music, one of the most inexplicably relevant projects out there right now. While songs like Closer, as well as the Coldplay collaboration Something Just Like This seem like amateurishly thrown together harmless pop songs that generally try to appeal to the lowest common denominator of artistic integrity and really do belong in the past, they manage to still be very popular in terms of airplay on mainstream pop radio, and they still have a pretty major place in the mainstream public's conscience in terms of music, which is kind of sad, actually, because the Chainsmokers have made perhaps some of the worst music, not only of the past few years, but of the century so far as well. So Far So Good, however, attempts to change things up for the Chainsmokers a little bit, and although they are the same kind of pop band they've been since 2014 with the song #Selfie, sorry if you forgot about that one, but if I have to remember it, you do too. There's no denying that their latest project attempts to slightly at least mature their sound. This can be seen by the fact that there isn't a single feature on this entire record. There's no Coldplay, there's no Blink-182, there's no Florida Georgia Line. Yes, they collaborated with Florida Georgia Line in the past. There's not a single other individual on this album except the two members of the Chainsmokers. Because of this, it quickly becomes apparent that the Chainsmokers' work on So Far So Good is meant to be an outing that makes them stand out as a singular star in the sky of electronic and pop music without having to be associated with the dozens of other constellations that they have previously collaborated with. Now, unfortunately, So Far So Good ultimately falls flat on its face in this regard, at least most of the time. The Chainsmokers simply repeat too many ideas or concepts that they've introduced on past records, and even their previous efforts, like 2017's Memories Do Not Open, are kinda dated in retrospect. And again, Memories Do Not Open was only in 2017. It was their, major breakthrough within the world of all music. And even still, it just has a sound that it bases itself around that simply doesn't thrive in the current year like it did a few years back. And their short and relatively recent back catalog feels incredibly dated because of that. This leaves So Far So Good, their latest effort, with a still relatively dated sound, even if it is sort of new by the actual measurement of time frame of popularity. While So Far So Good is probably the freshest sounding Chainsmokers album to date, it doesn't really take a lot of effort to achieve that title, and this record still sounds corny and immediately dated upon release. The fact that So Far So Good obviously wants to be so much more, and it obviously wants to progress the not only career but general respect from the music community of the Chainsmokers, it doesn't help its case any. It really honestly makes things worse. Making a bad album that you put no effort into is just that, bad, but making a mediocre or bad album that you actually put a lot of effort into as you were trying to achieve something can arguably significantly worse in the end. Now, I will say, at the very least, So Far So Good is significantly less annoying than previous Chainsmokers albums. Between monotonous vocals, bland instrumentation, and a general lack of care for what's being presented to the listener, previous high-charting songs from the Chainsmokers' career, like, say, Paris, feel like some of the most laughably bad and inexcusable songs to ever crack the higher end of the Hot 100. While they certainly haven't mastered the sound that they first debuted on their earliest singles, the Chainsmokers definitely improve upon it here to the point that So Far So Good is actually easy to stomach for an entire listen. Again, the same cannot be said at all for their previous records. Previous albums like the aforementioned Memories Do Not Open, I would only listen to in full for either A, the sake of review, like what I'm doing right now, or B, if you, like, had a gun to my head, or you're gonna, I don't know, put bamboo shoots under my nails, or, like, cut my tongue off or something, and even then, the bamboo shoots, pain is temporary, but the memory of the Chainsmokers' god-awful music is forever. So Far So Good, while definitely not great or even really good by any means, is something that I can easily listen to, and if I knew somebody that sat down next to me and said, hey, do you want to listen to that new Chainsmokers album, I wouldn't have to just give them a very firm no. I could actually just say, yeah, sure, and have it play as background music. It's easy to listen to, it's fluffy, it's pretty much entirely filler, if that's even possible, and there's nothing wrong with it in that regard. In fact, as strange for me as it is to say, I can't help but feel a little impressed by the Chainsmokers here. While So Far So Good would probably be more aptly titled So Far So So, I still do think that the Chainsmokers surprisingly take a legitimate stab at artistic evolution here, sort of. Look, I'm not saying that they're the Beatles going from fun boy band to Revolver or anything like that, but you know what? The Chainsmokers going in any direction but down is an amazing thing to me. No matter how hard this album fails to do what it initially sets out to do, there's still a level of respect that I feel obligated to give to the Chainsmokers for trying to distance themselves from the mostly shallow sounds of songs like Closer while still sticking to their electronic roots. And even though So Far So Good is a masterpiece by Chainsmokers standards, this is really just middle ground mainstream pop music at best, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's just that it's not good or even great, it's barely even mediocre sometimes, if I'm being honest, but I still really do genuinely commend the Chainsmokers for trying to grow past previous sounds and grow into a new sound with just themselves and each other to work with no features, nothing that sees them relying on other individuals to make any sense of quality in the song. It's just the Chainsmokers, and you know what? For the Chainsmokers, not bad. So, overall, So Far So Good it's background music at best, if I'm being totally honest. While it is certainly more palatable than their previous three albums, So Far So Good still stands as a mediocre, relatively normal, and mostly forgettable pop album. However, considering the place of pure musical shallowness that the Chainsmokers come from, I'm actually pleasantly surprised that they've obviously tried to really just take a step up in terms of their own sound while not sacrificing what made them so popular in the first place. I'm not saying there's a ton of interesting ideas here, and frankly, most of the time the Chainsmokers fail to deliver on any sense of actual quality in their music, but still, it's worth a listen in all honesty, even if you've hated the Chainsmokers in the past. There's actually legitimately a couple of decent songs on here that I would maybe recommend. I don't know, I'm just saying it's not as bad as you think it is, trust me. Which is why I'm going to give So Far So Good 2.5 stars out of 5. Again, it's a mediocre album. It's not good by any means. It's barely even mediocre, if I'm being honest. There are some bad tracks on here. But nonetheless, there is a level of artistic impression that it left on me that it certainly wasn't made by their previous records. And the important part is, this is not Memories Do Not Open. That was just an absolute garbage, dumpster fire, train wreck with a plane crashing onto the train wreck, and that was on fire, and then it was like all on a boat, and that boat was the Titanic, and the glacier that the Titanic crashed into was also on fire. It was like covered in gasoline, and it was on fire, and everything was on fire, and everybody died. That was what Memories Do Not Open was like, and this one is just not bad. It's not good, but it's not bad. So yeah, So Far So Good, 2.5 stars out of 5. And with that being said, that's the end of this review, and I'll see you guys in the next one.